Fighting with the swords, gone. Playing with the brain, on. Let's play Giraffe Chess Hattrick League Season 3.
International Giraffe Chess Federation presents Hattrick League Season 3 between 10 Proddatur teams. Hello everyone, welcome to India's new 68 squared Giraffe Chess Academy Proddatur, and welcome to the live telecast of no draws, no resigns, only win or lose in just 70 moves Giraffe Chess Hattrick League 2024 Season 3. Let us watch Hattrick League 14th match between Proddatur Marshals versus Kings. Each team consists of 3 players. Whoever team all outs opponent all 3 players is the match winners. Let us see the toss at the center of the court.
Okay, what is the call? Head or tail? Head is the call from the Proddatur Kings. Tails. Toss won by the Proddatur Marshals, and what will select, white or black? And Proddatur Marshals won the toss and elected to play on white side.
In the toss, Proddatur Marshals team won the toss and elected to play on white side. And here is the both teams lineup for Proddatur Marshals team. Surya is the opener and Dharnis is the second player, and Sai Charan comes to play as third player. And for Proddatur Kings team, Abdul Waris is the opener, Aravind is the second player, and Abdullah comes to play as third player. Now, let us watch first game of the match between Proddatur Marshals team opening player Surya versus Proddatur Kings team opening player Abdul Waris. Let us see among these 2 players who will win this game and who will do hat-trick and who will be the hat-trick hero of today's great match. Let us watch. Let us move on to the court. Best Scholar awardee Proddatur Marshals team opening player Surya is ready to play on white side. Let us see on other side of the court. Little Scholar awardee Proddatur Kings team opening player Abdul Waris is ready to play on black side. Now we can see both players are ready to start game 1 of the match. Black side player Abdul Waris is ready to hit the clock. Yes, he hit the clock. Game 1 started.
Knight to f3, pawn to f6, knight to c3, knight to h6, pawn to d3, knight to f7, pawn to d4, pawn to c6, pawn to e4, knight to a6, pawn to e5, pawn capture, pawn to e5, pawn capture, pawn to e5, knight to c7, knight to e4, Giraffe to e6, bishop to c4, Giraffe capture knight at f3, Giraffe capture giraffe at f3, pawn to d5, knight to g5, pawn capture bishop at c4, giraffe to e0, knight capture knight at g5, bishop capture knight at g5, queen capture queen at d1 and check to white king, king capture queen at d1, pawn to h6, bishop to f4, knight to d5, bishop to d2, pawn to g5, rook to e1, knight to f4, bishop capture knight f4, pawn capture bishop at f4, pawn to g3, pawn to f3, giraffe capture pawn at f3, pawn to e6, giraffe capture pawn to c4, pawn to b5, giraffe to f3, bishop to c5, rook to f1, pawn to b4, pawn to c3, bishop to a6, pawn to c4, rook to d8 and check to white king, king to c2, bishop to d4, rook to d1, bishop capture pawn at e5, rook capture rook at d8 and check to black king, king capture rook at d8, rook to d1 and check to black king, giraffe to d6, king to d3, king to e7, king to e4, bishop capture pawn at b2, giraffe to e3, giraffe capture giraffe at e3, pawn capture giraffe at e3, pawn to c5, rook to d2, bishop to a1, pawn to h4, bishop to b7 and check to white king, king to d3, bishop capture giraffe at f3, rook to f2, rook to d8 and check to white king, king to c2, bishop to e4 and check to white king, king to b3, bishop to c3, pawn to a3, bishop to e1, rook to e2, bishop capture pawn at g3, pawn capture pawn at b4, pawn capture pawn at b4, king capture pawn at b4, rook to b8 and check to white king, king to a5, rook to a8, king to b5, pawn to a6 and check to white king, king to b6, bishop to b8, rook to e1, bishop to g3, rook to g1, bishop capture pawn at h4, rook to g7 and check to black king, king to d6, rook to h7, king to e5, rook capture pawn at h6, bishop to d8 and check to white king, king to c5, bishop to g5, bishop to h5, king to f5, king to d4, bishop to f3, rook to h7, king to g4, rook to g7, king to g3, rook capture bishop at g5 and check to white king, king to f2, rook to a5, king to e1,
Now we can see Abdul
rook
Waris
to
is just
a1
one
and
step
check
away
to
to
black
win by
king,
crowning. Yes,
king
he
to
moved his
e0,
king to
crowning
e0
win.
and won the game by crowning. What a superb crowning win to Abdul Waris. Surya out. Proddatur Marshals team opening player Surya out. Abdul Waris with this win, he won the first game and still need two more wins to do hat-trick and become hat-trick hero of today's great match. Now, let us watch second game of the match between Proddatur Marshals team second player Dharnish Reddy versus Proddatur Kings team opening player Abdul Waris. Let us see among these two players who will win this game and who will do hat-trick and who will be the hat-trick hero of today's great match. Among these two players, Abdul Waris already won the first game and now playing for winning second game. Let us watch what will happen. Let us move on to the court. Best Scholar awardee Proddatur Marshals team second player Dharnish Reddy is ready to play on black side. Let us see on other side of the court. Little Scholar awardee Proddatur Kings team opening player Abdul Waris is ready to play on white side. Now we can see both players are ready to start game 2 of the match. Black side player Dharnish is ready to hit the clock. Yes, he hit the clock. Game 2 started.
pawn to e3, pawn to e5, knight to f3, pawn to d5, knight capture pawn at e5, pawn to f6, knight to d3, bishop to f5, giraffe to c3, bishop capture knight at d3, pawn capture bishop at d3, giraffe to d6, giraffe capture giraffe at d6, queen capture giraffe at d6, pawn to e4, pawn capture pawn at e4, pawn capture pawn at e4, queen to e5, knight to c3, pawn to f5, pawn to d4, queen to e7, pawn to d5, pawn capture pawn at e4, bishop to e2, pawn to c6, pawn capture pawn to c6, knight capture pawn to c6, pawn to f3, pawn capture pawn to f3, pawn capture pawn to f3, knight to f6, giraffe to d3, knight to d4, knight to b5, knight capture pawn to f3 and check to white king, king to e0, knight to d5, king to d0, knight to g5, bishop to h5 and check to black king, pawn to g6, bishop to e2, pawn to a6, knight to d4, bishop to g7, giraffe to g2, bishop capture knight at d4, queen capture bishop at d4, rook to d8, queen to d3, knight to f6, queen to d1, rook capture queen at d1 and check to white king, bishop capture rook at d1, queen to d1, giraffe to d3, queen capture giraffe at d3, pawn to h4, knight to f3, king to e0, queen to e4 and check to white king, king to d0, knight to d4, bishop to a4 and check to black king, giraffe to c6, bishop to d1, Queen capture rook at h1. Bishop to e0.
Now Darnish
Knight to
immediately
e2
jumped
and check
his
to white
knight
king,
to
and it's a
e2 and
checkmate.
said check to white king. It is not only check, it is a checkmate win to Darnish. What a superb checkmate win to Darnish. Abdul Waris out. Proddatur Kings opening player Abdul Waris out. And a great disappointment for the Abdul Waris. He lost hat-trick chance. And whereas Darnish, he got a hat-trick chance. Still, by this win, he won the first game, and Darnish still need 2 more wins to do hat-trick and become hat-trick hero of today's great match. Now, let us watch third game of the match between Proddatur Marshals team second player Darnish Reddy versus Proddatur Kings team second player Aravind. Let us see among these two players who will win this game and who will do hat-trick and who will be the hat-trick hero of today's great match. Among these two players, Darnish Reddy already won first game and now playing for winning second game. Let us see what will happen. Let us move on to the court. One-time hat-trick hero, best scholar awardee, Proddatur Marshals team second player Darnish Reddy is ready to play on white side. Let us see on other side of the court. 3 times hat-trick hero, best scholar awardee, Proddatur Kings team second player Aravind is ready to play on black side. Now we can see both players are ready to start game 3 of the match. Black side player Darnish is ready to hit the clock. Yes, he hit the clock. Game 3 started.
Pawn to e4, pawn to d5, pawn to e5, pawn to e6, pawn to d4, pawn to f6, queen to e2, pawn capture pawn to e5, queen capture pawn to e5, bishop to d6, queen to e2, pawn to b6, queen to f3, pawn to c6, pawn to c4, knight to d7, pawn capture pawn to d5, pawn capture pawn to d5, giraffe to d3, bishop to b7, giraffe to g4, pawn to h5,
Aravind
queen to
immediately
f7
moved
and
his
check to
queen to
black king,
f7 and
and it's
said
a
check to
checkmate.
black king. It is not only check, it is a checkmate win to Aravind. Darnish out. Proddatur Marshals team second player Darnish out. And big disappointment for Darnish. He lost the hat-trick chance, and whereas Aravind, he won the first game. Now, let us watch fourth game of the match between Proddatur Marshals team last player Sai Charan Nayak versus Proddatur Kings team second player Aravind. Let us see who will win this game. If Aravind wins this game, his Proddatur Kings team won the match. If Sai Charan Nayak wins this game, match will be tied with 2 games and go for 5th game for result. Let us move on to the court. Young scholar awardee, Proddatur Marshals team last player Sai Charan Nayak is ready to play on black side. Let us see on other side of the court. 3 times hat-trick hero, best scholar awardee, Proddatur Kings team second player Aravind is ready to play on white side. Now we can see both players are ready to start game 4 of the match. Black side player Sai Charan Nayak is ready to hit the clock. Yes, he hit the clock. Game 4 started.
Pawn to e4, pawn to d6, pawn to d4, knight to f6, bishop to d3, pawn to g6, pawn to e5, pawn capture pawn at e5, pawn capture pawn at e5, knight to d7, knight to f3, bishop to g7, bishop to f4, knight to c5, bishop to c4, knight to e4, queen to e2, knight to c5, bishop to g3, pawn to e6, knight to d2, knight to c6, giraffe to d3, knight to d4, queen to d1, gathering at king side, pawn to c3, knight to c6, pawn to b4, knight to a6, pawn to h4, knight to e7, bishop to f4, pawn to c6, pawn to g4, pawn to b5, bishop to b3, knight to d5, bishop to g3, pawn to f6, pawn capture pawn at f6, bishop capture pawn at f6, pawn to h5, pawn capture pawn at h5, pawn capture pawn at h5, Knight to c7, rook to g1, bishop to b7, bishop capture knight at c7, king to f7, bishop capture queen at d8, rook capture bishop at d8, queen to e2, pawn to c5, pawn capture pawn at c5, knight capture pawn at c5, giraffe to g4 and check to black king, king to g7, giraffe to d5, knight capture bishop to illegal, king to f7, giraffe to g4 and check to black king, king to e7, bishop to c2, knight to a4, giraffe capture pawn at h7, knight capture to pawn at c3, giraffe capture knight at c3, rook to d7, bishop to f5, pawn to e5, bishop capture rook at d7, rook to d8, bishop to f5, bishop to a6, queen to e3, pawn to b4, queen capture pawn to a7 and check to black king, king to f8, bishop to g6, Giraffe to c6. Queen capture bishop at a6. Rook to c8. Queen to b7. Bishop to e7. Queen capture rook at c8 and check to black king. King to g7. Queen to e6. Giraffe to d9. Bishop to e8 and check to black king. King to f8.
Now Aravind immediately
Queen to
moved his
f7
queen
and check
to
to black king
f7
and it's a
and set
checkmate.
check to black king. It is not only check, it is a checkmate win to Aravind. What a superb checkmate win to Aravind. Sai Charan Naik out. Proddatur Marshals team last player Sai Charan Naik out. And with this out, Proddatur Marshals team all out and lost the match. And whereas Aravind, he did extraordinary performance. He won continuously 2 games and makes his team won the match. Giraffe Chess Hattrick League 2024 Season 3. Let us see match number 14. Proddatur Marshals vs Proddatur Kings match scoreboard. In game 1, Proddatur Kings player Varis outs Proddatur Marshals player Surya by checkmate in 59 moves. In game 2, Proddatur Marshals player Dharnish outs Proddatur Kings player Varis by checkmate in 34 moves. In game 3, Proddatur Kings player Aravind outs Proddatur Marshals player Dharnish by checkmate in 12 moves. In game 4, Proddatur Kings player Aravind outs Proddatur Marshals player Sai Charantesh by checkmate in 46 moves. Final playoffs.